TLC, how are you? We are halfway there. B90X, we're over the hump. So it's been a great journey, but I can say that the last couple of books that we've been in have been really thought-provoking, and I've been talking to people who are doing it. Some people are behind, some people are right on. I encourage you to, if you want to join us for the second half of this, to start in Proverbs and read your way through. It's worth your time and your effort. It takes about an hour a day. I like to sit in the backyard and ask the Holy Spirit to show me what He wants me to see in the Scriptures. But coming through this section of the Bible, you know, we spent a fair amount of time in Job, and of course Psalms were there. We'll be entering Proverbs here in just a day. But you know, I was contemplating on Job, and Job is this book. It's like it should be the book of Lamentations. This is a tough book. But when you read the book of Job and you see how it starts, and I personally read it many times trying to understand the idea of suffering, because it's incongruent with a loving God and this suffering, and how could He let it happen? And then when you start to look at the nuances and you start to see what God is showing us in this book, the first part of the book is really essentially Satan has access to the throne because Adam gave him that in the garden. And you know, God says, Satan, where have you been? I've been roaming to and fro in the earth. And He says, have you considered my servant Job? And I'm like, wow, you know, God had a lot of trust in Job. When He's like throwing him in front of Satan, He kind of knew what his heart was. He says, well, yeah, sure he praises you because he's got a hedge of protection around him. Who wouldn't praise him? But you go ahead and remove that and see if He won't curse you. And sure enough, God says, okay, let's do it. And you know, He says basically, in the world I come, and the world God gives and the Lord takes away, and the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then Satan comes again to the Lord, and he says, if I afflict him in his body, he will certainly curse you. And I guess, you know, God does know every inclination of our hearts. I mean, it's just so incredible. And with that being said, He's tested with a trial that brings out all kinds of things. And this is where I learned a lot. And basically, what I think is really cool is how there's just chapter after chapter of people judging, his friends judging him, saying, surely you brought this on, surely there's sin in your life, surely God just doesn't do this to His righteous children. And then Job justifies himself for umpteen chapters, and he's saying, you know, if I would have looked longingly on a woman, if I would have not fed somebody, he justifies himself. He's actually in a place where he says there's no reason why something like this could happen. And the way I correlate that is very much like today, when something goes down bad, when something doesn't go the way we think it should, and how we really think that, God, how could you let this happen? How could you let this tumor? How could you let this divorce? How could you let this bankruptcy? And it really isn't God. It's not God's doing. It's the enemy trying to get you to curse God. And then finally, I look at people like Joseph and David and all these people who we've seen along this journey who had very tough situations, and they just trusted God to get them out of it. Finally, at the culmination in this book of Job, we go into a place where Job is saying, he says, God says to me, stand up and let me confront you as a man. He says, would you justify yourself to discredit me? Would you somehow try to make me be bad or inaccurate so that you could justify yourself? Anyway, a lot learned there. Just so you know, God is a gracious, loving, giving God. Job not only got double for his troubles, he was able to forgive his friends for the judgment that they brought on him. He lived a long, healthy, prosperous life, and it's a great story. And we jump right there into Psalms, and it's like reading David's journal, and it's really good. The investment is you're drinking from the well of life. An hour a day, maybe not watching news or some kind of favorite sitcom or whatever you're into, the payoff is huge. The Holy Spirit has to have something to bring to your remembrance, to have you be anchored in times of questioning and trouble. And so we have to sow this seed in us. And I just want to encourage you, TLC, don't give up. We're almost we're on the other side for sure. And in just a couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating. God bless you.